I would.
Apologies, just one moment here, Mr. Goodrich. Brianna, there's another one coming your way in just one moment. Thank you so much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. So we do have one select board member remotely, so we have to do roll call votes for everything, just so folks know. It is May 22nd, and I'd like to call this meeting to order and have an acceptance of the agenda.
So
Moved by Ms. Conley, second. Second by Mr. Gilmore, and we need a roll call.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison. Yes. Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley. Yes. And Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Right. All right, so as folks know, we are here to talk about solutions with the new water treatment plant and what we can do to mitigate the big contract and talk about all the different scenarios that we have, and we're going to actually be here to go through a presentation. But first, I'd like to take some walk-ins if anyone has questions, comments, anything.
Mr. Goodrich, you have no walk-ins from a virtual side.
None virtually, so now we have someone right here. Yes, so just state your name, your address for the record.
Erin Higley, 151st Parish Road.
Yes.
And my question is maybe outside of what the topic is, or is it only for this topic?
It should be outside. It should be outside, not above the top.
Okay, yes. The Scituate Brook, the namesake of the town, is flooded and clogged up with the invasive species. I was wondering, what department can I work with to find out if that's something that they can work on? I understand the conservation, state level conservation does offer grants. And I've gone to all the agencies in the town and they've all pointed to conservation. Conservation told me it's not them. So is there someone that I could work with or could help me figure out who the right people are? I went to the store since, it's.
Come see me.
What's that?
Come see me, talk to Michelle. She'll give you contact information and come and see me.
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. All right, so with that, thank you for that. Let's forget. We'll take care of that. Jim, have a presentation. Yeah.
Good evening. Go over the water treatment plant bid, where we are, towards where the bids came in significantly over what we have budgeted and available. So we want to talk about kind of what happened, what the environment was, and where we are today, what some of our options are. Try to help the board make decisions on what we need to go there. Those are your two bids. 58 and 68 million, that's just the construction, it doesn't include the other costs. So the total cost is over $70 million. As Kevin, I think, has explained to you, the two bids, we had 7 people take out bid documents. We had 2 come back. Those 2 bidders brought in 2 envelopes. One envelope is generally, Jesus, a lot of bidders, we need to be tight, and the other one is not a lot of bidders, so we're just gonna throw something and see if we get it. We got the 2 throw and see if we get it. So why the variance from what we thought? From when we started to when we have left, the final treatment plant had a little different treatment than what we started with. Also in anticipation of the new federal PFAS limits, which went from 20 parts per trillion to 4 parts per trillion. We put PFAS treatment in the plant. Our surface water and most of our wells are below the 20 parts per trillion. But they are above the 4 parts per trillion, so you won't need to be treated at some level. RS Means is a construction estimator that is used by the industry. Cost estimates about 20 to 22% since the project was approved. According to our consultant, right now there's a minimum of $825 million of projects for water and wastewater currently out to bid or going out to bid in the next 7 months. Including one in Springfield that is in excess of $200 million. So we know there are several companies just waiting on that one, because I don't think those companies are busy forever. Companies need to be pre-qualified under DCAM, which is the Division of Capital Asset Management for the state. We pre-qualified 8, 7 took out bids, only 2 returned bids. And as I mentioned, they turned in what we believe to be the highest of 2 bids. Why only 2 bidders? Again, first you have to qualify everybody. We do have to pay prevailing wage. Projects over $150,000 require filed sub-bidding for 18 specific trades that have a project cost of $25,000. That makes it very difficult to have to file sub-bids. Projects over 150 require general contractors and subcontractors to be certified by DCAM. 28 different categories, again, that also starts to limit the number of companies that can do this work. Projects over 10 million require pre-qualification, which we had to do with potential sub-bidders and file sub-bidders. So you just can't get a company to say, geez, I'd like to do this and submit a bid. They have to meet all the pre-qualifications before they do bid on these projects. A lot of companies don't even want to get qualified. It's a very onerous process. Final sub-bids that we received, again, came in way over our estimates, more than 7 million, close to $8 million over our estimates. There's our detail of our shortfalls. We had a balance of construction of $42 million. The lowest base bid was $56 million. $10 million what we had left over. We had 2 alternates, because we knew we were tight, so we took 2 alternates out. The 2 alternates were the raw water rehab and the demolition of the existing building. We thought if we're close, we take those out, we might be able to get where we need to be. So we took those out. Those are $2 million. Then the DEP requires a contingency, and then FF&E and technology packages to go back, taking out some places.
We want to read fairways, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, the side everybody at home, the total shortfall is $20,320,960. So one of the questions we've asked is, can we value engineer this? Can we do some things differently? Can we take some things out? I know there's been some chatter about removing the office space from there. We also, if you look at the building, it's a very nice building. We didn't go with a prefab building. We wanted to do something that was more in touch with the town and better for the neighbors. We could take those out, go back to a prefab, take the offices out. We estimate we save $3 or $4 million by taking those out, but then you'd have to go through the whole bidding process again. And as I get into later, we don't think that's a good idea because it's just not enough coverage. But we might not need any business. So, and also, if we take the office space out, we will then spend money later on the office space down a local bucket. It's not handicap accessible. Aside from the part of it that got hit by a car and rebuilt, it's rough shape, it needs to be fixed. So we'll be spending money back down there. That would be saved in this sense. So it's just really taking the money from that. Options: we can reject all the bids and go back out to bid. We may get more bidders. We may not get any bidders. We don't know. We know there's one company that did not bid on this. Is in demand. They are bidding on another project. If they get it, they won't bid on anything for a year or so. Because there'll be plenty of bids to do it. The bids may come in higher. We also have right now is a BABA, I think it's called Build American, Buy American, Build American. We have a waiver for that right now. If we lose that waiver, then the cost will go up another 20% on the supplies. So we don't want to hit that. And the project design wouldn't have changed, so we'd still be looking for additional money. We still wouldn't have enough money to do the project. We can reject them and wait for projects like Springfield, which is one of the really big ones. Same issues exist. We don't know what we get for bidders. One of our bids could get that job and then they wouldn't bid again on us, so it's a risk that we don't typically take. And then the final one is to schedule a town meeting to authorize the additional borrowing while seeking other relief from Mass Clean Water Trust, Plymouth County, and our federal partners. So how are we going to get $20 million down? How are we going to mitigate the impact on the taxpayers? We would propose the following: unspent balances from the library, public safety, and senior center debt exclusion. We've already voted to apply those. That would be up next time meeting. Unspent water enterprise capital projects that we can transfer. ARPA interest, water enterprise retained earnings, water enterprise capital stabilization, our remaining free cash, capital stabilization, some money from the stabilization fund, And there's Toll Brothers and our wind funds that we can take money from also. This is what Nancy and I are recommending. Again, you can't see it, but we'll be recommending transferring from available funds. Excuse me, an amount of about $6 million, just over. Which would then bring the additional borrowing to $14 million to $20 million that I saw out there. As you saw from the previous slide, there are more funds available. We want to be cautious that we don't make decisions that cause issues with our regular operating budget in the future, our bond rating, so we are being conservative and get that number down to 14. Two ways to pay for this is the debt exclusion, which we've already approved, water rates. We went on the debt exclusion before because we thought it was an equitable way to do it, spread across people differently. If we do on the water rates, we will have to cut back or eliminate a lot of the projects that we're going to do under the water rates. If you put it on the water rates, that's a permanent increase. If it's on the debt exclusion, that we know those taxes go down and then eventually go away over time. Does not require another ballot vote because the ballot vote does not specify an amount, it just specifies an increase from 2.5. So we can go to the Department of Revenue and request that we do this. That was done with the public safety building before, that came from the budget. If DOR says no, then we have to fall back. This is just what we talked about before. Some of the projects that we see down there, we already talked about that we don't really have the ability to do. Hummerock water mains, that's up to almost $1 million now. I'm talking about some of the cost increases we're seeing here. I think that's actually a soft number, given the cost of supplies and equipment. Dolan well fields is also down significantly, and then the annual water main replacement. This is what people want to know, right? What's the impact? At town meeting, when we did this, we estimated the impact would be $255 on the average home in the first year. We have found out, because we are a housing choice community, the 2.4% that the Mass Clean Water Trust is currently charging for interest on 30-year projects. We get a 0.5% break because we're a housing choice community, that would bring it down to 1.9%. That would make the increase $46. And the wild card is if you are doing PFAS treatment, PFAS facilities are eligible for a 0% loan from the Water Pollution Abatement Trust. If we use the $6 million that Nancy and I proposed, and we get a 0% loan on the amount that we're looking for, the total project amount, we could actually get this cost down to less than what we voted at town meeting. We are fairly confident that at least a portion of the plant will be eligible for a 0% loan because that's treat PFAS. Our belief is, because we will be treating our surface water, which has PFAS over 4 parts per trillion. Before you can treat the surface water for PFAS, you have to treat the surface water for all the gunk in the surface. It all has to get out before it goes to the PFAS filter. So our argument with the DEP is we have to do all this treatment for PFAS, not just the one particular PFAS portion of it. We'll see how that goes. We think it's a good argument. Again, if we can get a 0% loan, then we can actually make the impact of this, even being $20 million higher, less than what we told the final issue when we voted for the town. I've already talked to Plymouth County. I asked them for $20 million in ARPA money, an additional $20 million. They said, yeah, no. But I think we can put some pressure on them. There's still only less than half authorized from all the money that they have for ARPA. Communities have to let them know by June 30th. By September, they will know exactly how much they have left. With the COVID funds, Scituate got at least 2, possibly 2 and possibly 3 additional appropriations from the county because we were able to spend the money in a timely fashion on the town's money. So I think we can get some additional money from Plymouth County. It's not going to be $20 million, but we can get some additional money from the county. If we do go to town meeting, we will be asking for the resolution to ask Plymouth County for the extra money. So the Clean Water Trust 0% loan that we talked about, spoke to Keating's office and Markey's office, shake their federal cushion and see if there's any federal money available. So we're actually together working with DEP on the PFAS. DEP will make a determination what is the PFAS plant And that goes to the Clean Water Trust, the Clean Water Trust, then there's money based upon this determination. And if I'm saying anything wrong, just let me know. So why a June meeting? It seems rushed. One of the big reasons for the June meeting is those sources of funds, particularly the water enterprise and free cash, they go away June 30th. They don't exist anymore until we finish closing our books, and then we have to be authorized a new number. So we want to grab those beforehand. Also, we have a bid in place now that will expire. It actually expires 2 days prior to town meeting on the 21st. We have spoken to general contractor, he's going to give us an extension. Now we have to make sure all the subcontractors will give us an extension. Really, the extension is Friday to Tuesday, because Monday night, if we have town meeting on the 24th, we'll tell them, yes, we have the money, we're gonna actually use the contract, we're gonna have to go back and do it again. So, we'd like to keep that contractor. I think the design team at our OPM did work with this contractor before. I think he does good work. Again, there's just not that many. I was asking them how many do it, they can name them on their hand, how many companies are out there that did this. The town meeting article would basically be the same as the town meeting article we have with the treatment plant to give it, just with the updated numbers. Any money we got from our state and federal partners would be used to reduce the amount of borrowing that we will tax rate. And then the second article would be the draft of what we put for the county. So, not where we want to be. A lot of good environment. We do have Rob Little and Laura Frank from the County Design Team, Steve Raffi, OPM, and Diane Vaughn, both here. Kevin Caffrey is here, and Aaron Langley is here. Don't ask Eric any of the money questions, he can just a lot of questions. He gets a little flustered when he's not talking the money questions, but the design team is in, answer any questions you have. I just think really what happened is there's a perfect storm of business out there with a lot of the ARPA money. And then what happened when the new federal regulations dropped, and they went from 20 parts per trillion to 4 parts per trillion, these companies are just sitting there saying, there is now enough work for us to do until our grandchildren are older. So there's not a lot of incentive for them to be very competitive in their bids. Because if they don't get this bid over here, there's gonna be another one over here. And it's just, again, there's 8-10 companies that actually do this type of work. And it's 800 million now, is a lot more coming down the line. We did look at a couple of, I'll let Rob Little speak to some of the, what they've seen in some of these other bids, but I did speak to a colleague of mine in Plainville. They have a $12 million PFAS project that's getting ready to bid, the consultant's not told, that ended up being over $20 million. Happy to bid, and you just missed it, so that's the type of presentation that we'll see. Nancy and I here to answer any questions. I'm gonna bring the design team up so we both can ask some questions. And then we'll go from there. Any questions for us first, Andrew?
Well, here, let's have the design team come up and then kind of, you know, once, right?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll go first, I guess.
Sure, please.
So I'll introduce myself, Rob Little with Woodard & Curran, the design engineer. I'm the principal in charge. Me and Lauren Frank, the relatively newly assigned project manager. We had another project manager and Laura's going to get right at the fun part, which is to deal with the bidding climate. So I think Jim did a nice job explaining sort of where we're at. We'll certainly answer any technical questions. I do want to reiterate a couple of, or expand upon a couple of points that Jim made. Woodard & Curran, we could have done a better job explaining where we're at and what the bidding climate was like, so that I will take responsibility for. I've never seen the bidding climate accelerating as quickly as it was. We got a 90% estimate from our estimating team back in December. I thought it was too high. They were carrying full overhead and profit. They were carrying what I thought at the time was a fat contingency on that. We had put some ad alternates in there, as you heard Jim explain. We could have stripped out if we were close and then come back to the board for more later, just so we get it awarded. What we're seeing in the bidding market is, in addition to the incredible number of projects that are out there, 825 million that we either know of or are on the street right now or about to be on the street. We could scour the intended use plan, which is the money that the state intended to give out, and probably find more in there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's over $1 billion of work coming out. And there's more projects every day. That federal PFAS limit, which Massachusetts has at a limit of 20 parts per trillion for the sum of 6 different PFAS compounds, and stop me from getting too much into the weeds, but there's thousands and thousands of these compounds out there. Up until recently, and still today, 6 of those added together have to be below 20 parts per trillion. The federal reg tightens those requirements, and now you have lower limits you have to meet. So we still have the Massachusetts ones. We also have the federal ones, which every community in Massachusetts and every community across the country is going to need to deal with in the next 3 to 5 years. Sampling begins. You guys are ahead of that wave, thankfully. But any community that hasn't been paying attention or was under 20, but now is not below the federal limits, they're going to have to do something. So we don't expect this bidding climate to get better anytime soon. The other thing that
just from, when did those regulations go in? Very recently.
April last month.
We're talking.
Correct, last month.
They're already out to
Basically.
bid.
We were up to bid at that point. Right.
But we anticipated that regulation coming in.
Right.
So therefore, between 50 and 90%, we looked at design criteria for filters, carbon filters, to ensure that they were adequately sized and of adequate depth to handle the PFAS. That was a design decision made. So we weren't gonna bid a plant that would be unusable as soon as it was built.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get the timeline and how.
So
I think
Mr.
it's
Chairman, yes, correct, yeah, good point. It was about a month ago that the federal regulation dropped. We've been tracking it for a while. We knew that the wells were also going to be impacted, so we've built the plant the Stearns Meadow plant is designed to accommodate flow from the wells as well, because those will not meet the federal standards either.
And then other communities that are doing just PFAS, as you said, Raynham or Webster, I mean, they're looking at $20 million just to do 2 wells. Okay, so being able to pipe over to this facility, a couple of your wells in the future data saves you some money down the road.
Yeah, depending on other treatment needs at your wells, as Steve mentioned, could be anywhere from $15 to $35 million in your flow range to treat those individually, and that's been accommodated in the Stearns Meadow plant. The other thing that the wave of bidding is, we're seeing impact that is the attempt by you and many communities to get ahead of the BABA waivers, that's Buy America, Build America. Some pretty stringent requirements. If you recall, AIS, American Iron and Steel, that was put in place a number of years ago. That escalated some pricing. That is in play and is included in the bids that you've received. At this point, we have a BABA waiver for your project. Many other communities do as well, but that waiver is set to expire. And what we've estimated from talking with some construction firms that we are familiar with, about a 20% escalation of the material costs of any structure. So if you just rough math, if you say 50% of your proposed plant is materials, 20% escalation on that is about a $5 or $6 million increase in price, just if that waiver goes away, changing nothing in the design. So the afternoon of receipt of bids, Lauren and I got on the phone with Mass DB to talk about the PFAS removal nature of it, what portion of the plant is attributable to PFAS removal versus everything else. We've had several conversations with them since, and what Jim's put forward is I think we can make a strong argument that all of those pre-treatment steps are required before you put that water through the granular activated carbon filters, which are going to be, get rid of PFAS from the finished water. I think you'd have a tough sell to the state on the admin spaces and the garage space, but I believe the entire treatment process area, we could put a good argument for it to DEP that should be 0% interest because it's PFAS related.
And that brings down the number further.
The vast majority of the cost of the plant is obviously the plans. The office space is 3 or 4 million, so
It'll get us down to that.
they'll get us down to
Actually,
0 or less.
or less than what we.
So it's 3 to 4 million less of the total build cost, or no?
No.
The office space,
Is 3 to 4 million, right?
That's what we estimated, if we stripped out the office space. we
If
said
it were stripped out, but, you know, you have to deal with the office space at some point in the future, and again, to do that, you'd be looking at, you know, rebidding the project in this bidding climate, and, you know, again, some of the contractors we spoke to, if they win one more job, whether it's a project that we know is bidding this Friday, or one next week, or next month, some of these contractors win one more project, they won't be bidding these types of projects for a year or two.
So I went through an exercise, when this came in, I said, all right, what's the easiest stuff to strip off? Strip off the garage space, or maybe change the roof configuration to a flatter roof or whatever. Working off of their bid estimate, stripping those numbers out, indicate that you have to do some redesign, that costs some money. Then realizing that the avid kicks in, because you're outside of the avid, you know, window of waiver, and then using a 4% escalation rate, which you we're bidding a year or so from now. At the end of the day, you barely saved any money, and now you don't have a good garage, and you got a garage that's falling apart the other end, you've got to look at money for the fix. So it was a chasing the tail exercise. Try to strip things out, but unless you, a big chunk of the cost on this plan is the earthwork, where we have the lagoons. It's a fairly deep excavation because we've got a lot of concrete. The filter beds now are deeper than what was started way back a couple of years ago. So the process area is a big bulk of the cost. It's a lot of concrete, a lot of equipment.
I'll make a couple more points, a good question.
Yeah.
To interrupt. We've requested a waiver to the, an extension, excuse me, to the BAPA waiver, so we now have until August 30th. That was, June 30th to August 30th to allow the time to make a decision on how to proceed while still maintaining that waiver. Again, that's a $6 or $7 million waiver that we have right there. We've reached out to all of the filed submitters and the GC. The GC has agreed to hold his bid for the 60 days. 8 of 11 of the filed submitters have responded. The other 3 have said no, they're just waiting for responses from them. If they want the work,
There's major submitters, plumbing, electrical, with big numbers in there. They've all said nothing for 30 days. We're chasing like the resilient flooring person, the elevator person. They have to carry an allowance because they don't won't be 30 days. It's not gonna blow the job out.
So and then just a few sound bites that, again, I was speaking with a construction partner, trying to do a deep dive and a deep brief on, you know, how we can do a better job estimating in this crazy bidding climate. So, the hydraulic flow rate, again, is designed to accommodate the flow from the wells as well as what your provision control is from the bucket, the pond. That dictates the size of all this piping. You can't go smaller, restrict the flow. You obviously don't want to go bigger, it be more. 20-inch T, for example, was $3,500 last year. It's $20,000 today. 20-inch motor operated valves, which you have a fair number of, they were $7,000 to $9,000, up to about $35,000 to $40,000. Just over the last year. Hydrants up $1,600 to $4,000. The numbers that I've gotten from one of our construction firms that we work with. So with that much work on the street and the requirements of AIS and becoming field contractors kind of naming their price, and if you like it, you know, take it. If you don't, they'll go get another $1,000. So that's all I have.
I'm gonna open it up, like I said, I wanted to start with this, and I bet there's folks who are, they're upset, right? You made a promise, what cost would be, and rightfully, right? I mean, I've seen it, you've seen the cost of a lot of other projects, we'll talk about, have gone up. And that was, thank you for taking us through, you know, kind of how we got there. And we'll go through this more to make sure that we can make sure we're containing those costs. I come back and just, for folks at home and people who's that, I'm also angry at the groundwater. I'm also angry at not having clean water that's gonna meet the state standards. And so we're gonna have to come, this has to be done, right? So we have to find a way to get this over the goal line. And I hope this would be a good constructive conversation for everyone. I mean, I heard it, I was angry. I mean, it's upsetting, it's nothing that none of us want. You know, we don't come up here, hey, let's see these bids go way over cost, no. That's not why we come up here to do this. So hopefully we can turn this into something positive. So with that, I will open it up to some questions, yes.
Just like to start at a bigger picture for everyone who's listening. What are the benefits of what we're doing? Why are we doing this? Is there redundancy in this plant that doesn't exist now? Will we get better water? Because we're now kind of in the weeds, but I think just for the general public, what are we getting from it?
Sure. The answer to all those questions is yes. You'll get increased reliability and redundancy of your water treatment plant. Not sure who's had the opportunity to drive by the existing facility. It's an antiquated facility. There's single process trains, which if they fail, parts are no longer available for those, which puts more strain on your well supplies, which you can only pump so much. So you're in jeopardy of not being able to provide adequate water and fire protection for the customers should any single piece of equipment within that existing plant fail. Try not to get into the weeds here, but the loading rates and the unit processes within the existing plant are not able to meet current regulatory standards we're living by. PFAS being the latest example of that. There is nothing in that existing plant that we able to remove PFAS. Again, we saw this coming. We know Massachusetts has had a limit for a number of years, so that has been designed into it, but not to the levels that we've seen. Manganese will be removed. You mentioned the colored water. This plant is going to remove that. There was a product presentation we did, I believe, in front of this board a while back, where we showed 4 jars. As the water traveled through the treatment processes, it was not pretty in the raw water. Make it dirty before we make it prettier by adding chemicals to take the contaminants out. Goes through the filters and then ultimately finished water. It was pristine and clean, and that is what the new plant's going to do.
Well, in terms of PFAS, we're designing this plant so that we're not gonna have to go back and retrofit it in 2 or 3 years. I mean, who knows what the government's gonna require going down the road? But I think most people understand or have heard the idea of these forever plastics that are causing health problems, potential health problems. And I know people are concerned about it. I'd also like to suggest to you that every so often we have to send out a notice to our water users, and people get very alarmed because it says if you're pregnant, if you're a small child, if you're immunocompromised, don't drink the water. And then, so I'm hoping that we addressed all of those issues as well in this plan.
We have, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so back to this sort of redundancy question you asked. Last winter, Eric arranged to change our carbon for 1 filter we have. It took several months of coordination, find a low flow time, and to line everybody up correctly to do it. I don't know if Eric slept at all during the week that was ongoing, because anything that went wrong would have meant you were really out of luck with anything in the water supply. We did pull it off, but it takes a lot of coordination. It's, you know, if you had to do something like that in the summer, you wouldn't be able to do it. So the PFAS question, I think I touched upon this. The issue with PFAS is the amount of contact time that the water is with the carbon. We started the pilot plant several years ago, thinking we had a certain type of treatment that would work. Discovered as we were piloting that it wasn't doing what we needed to do. Modified the pilot, we were primarily focused on manganese and iron. We discovered a process that was extremely effective at addressing that issue. Again, as we got into the design, we had a basis of design that we started from. PFAS thing came up, and we had an internal discussion that said, instead of having carbon filters that are 12 feet deep, that's all we needed from piloting work, for the things we were looking at. We realized the contact time we needed for PFAS means those have to be almost 20 feet deep, not 12 feet. So we made that decision that you didn't want to build a plant and have it be absolute. We didn't know what the number was going to be, whether it was going to be 8, 6, or 4. Those are the sort of numbers the EPA was taking hearings on to decide the final number. So on that regard, we kind of made the right internal team engineering design decision.
So I'll echo and let's move on, Andrew's, what he said earlier, no one wants to be here under these circumstances, none of us, not one of us. But the question is, what do we do now? And I greatly appreciate Nancy and Jen going through all, people don't have this in front of them, like, is it on the website now? It's gonna be posted, you're welcome to look through it, it's dense with information and, proposed alternatives, proposed ways we're beating the pushes to find money throughout the budget. And, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices, I think. But, you know, in terms of the stabilization fund, we're going to be using some money from that if this all goes the way we hope it will. But, we're not gonna grade that fund. And so I think they made some responsible, proposals to us and to the town as to what we can do. So, so I appreciate the work that everyone's done and turn it over.
I just have a couple of things. I appreciate the presentation, thank you. It's clear we value clean drinking water, and we were so forward thinking in the design for this. It's just unfortunate that, we weren't so forward thinking in the cost estimates. I appreciate, your statement that you could have done a better job. I do agree on on estimating, and because we do pay you to understand what the lay of the land is. I mean, I don't know that there's $825 million projects. So it's really important for us to have that insight, and that's why we pay consultants for this. So my question is like, is this it? Like, if you're saying it's a, it's, you know, it's a climate like you've never seen, right? Like, who's to say, is there risk to us for escalating, whether it's change orders or whatever, whenever, if we get to a point of signing, of asking the town for more money, because that looks like our only option, of the options, of the bad list of options. What's the risk of increased costs or change orders
So,
for the town?
We get SRF fund, rules require that you carry 5% contingency once you have the bid. So the bid is the bid. The numbers we have in front of us include that 5% contingency, which is, you know, over $3 million of contingency money inside the numbers we're working. We have to show that, we have to carry it, we have to show you that. So the design is, in my opinion, having looked at the drawings, it's a complete and strong design. There's always something that comes up along the way. I feel like a 5% contingency is a very adequate contingency. We have come with all the costs we spent. Money still outstanding, we're going to create also. I have a very high degree of confidence that we're not coming back for any more money. I can't. You know, we've included the demo, we've included upgrading the water pump station. I don't know what's out there that could change anything.
Is any town further along than us that have done this and not seen?
in what sense?
Not use their contingency?
Oh, yeah, we've had plenty of projects where we've designed, you can speak to, time bond, where we're under 1 or 2% change orders.
Okay.
Those are percentages.
We just did some utilities on Route 3A, I've driven over it and I'm very aware of the bumps.
Yeah, I am aware of it. I
Again,
actually am specifically
I'm gonna have to-
talking about this
I'm gonna
type
have-
of
I'm gonna- Well,
project.
that's part of that,
Yeah.
part of that work is inside this estimate. At the time that we got SRF funding, that component, we had to carry $170,111 as a contingency on that portion of the work. That money's not been touched. Okay, so we have in front of us at least a single data point that says we're unlikely to need much of any of the contingency. Okay. Rob will probably speak to his engineering firm's expectation, 2% change orders or less, 1% change orders or less. I mean, that's typical for a firm like we would occur. They, we can fault them for spending too much time on the design, but they try to design to a complete point so that you're not getting surprised during construction and change orders.
This is an interesting conversation. I have to premise my background of over 35 years in large commercial construction in the city of Boston. I understand the bidding system, the DCAM registration, the fact that even the flooring, which is what I was involved in, but any subcontractor needs to apply to DCAM to be rated financially. And then to take a project of this magnitude and sophistication, I well understand why there's very limited bidders, because there's very few companies, no matter what the economy is, good, bad, ugly, that can actually build this type of a facility. I have to say, I'm about $14 million surprised at the increase, which looks like where our town is with our numbers. You've found approximately, possibly $6 million, which more than doubly covers the offices and the other ancillary costs to build a sophisticated design. And then there's the $14 million increase in what I would call the technical aspects of this design that have to be done. So I think it's a matter of continuing to rely on the expertise of the experts, the expertise of the town experts to bring this project forward, and we need to have the money. We need it to be voted on. And let's continue forward and make sure we get that 0% if we can. Let's go back to senators and get our commitments that we have been made, that will help bring this down to a more workable, acceptable level. Nobody wants to see this kind of increase. I'm not surprised in today's economy with what's going on in construction and labor and expertise and finance. It's all, somebody said a perfect storm earlier. That's where we're at. So we need to press forward. And I have confidence in everybody in this room to get it done the right way. That's my opinion.
Karen,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of categories. I'd like to dive into some of the financials later, but generally speaking, I want to thank Nancy and Jim and the whole team for laying out the problem and how it happened and presenting us so clearly with potential options. It's, you know, no one expected this, and you guys have really stepped up to the table to help us sort this out. I had a couple of technical questions that I wanted to just get some clarity on. The demolition of the existing building, is that the alternate B in the estimate?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, and what is the dollar amount in this bid for that?
With contingency, it's 596,613.
Oh,
596,000.
around 600,000. Does the demolition of that building require the same level of expertise that building the building requires?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just demolition.
Right,
It would require a specialty demolition contractor.
right. And the timeline for that demolition is 3 to 4 years out, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
So I would suggest from the, you know, while I 100% agree with my colleagues that, you know, this is extremely unfortunate. It is the environment we're in. We don't, we can talk about the value of bidding out, but I think that the case has been made very strongly that we need to get this plant built, and we are, it's a wish and a prayer if we go out to rebid at this point, and we could be in a worse situation. So assuming we are going to move forward, I would suggest that the Alt B would be an easy haircut that we could rebid down the road with less expertise. And, you know, yes, there'll be inflation and time and all of that, but I would think that we don't need the, you know, the 1% that can build a water plant to bid for that piece. And that might, I mean, Nancy and the finance folks can tell me if that's a good way to think about it, but off the top, that was that. I would think that On the value engineering piece, obviously with every single public project, we expect that of our OPMs. We expect that of our consultants to, yes, you have this great design, but any place we can save effectively without compromising the integrity of the project, that's a given, and we would expect that regardless of this. I did want to ask a question. You mentioned, and I may have a little trouble hearing over the Zoom. You mentioned that well filters will be required to be upgraded, and I thought I heard you say for our system, we're talking $15 to $20 million down the road. Did I hear that correctly?
You did, yeah, for depending, if you're gonna install individual treatment at your individual well supplies, it could be in that range. To provide, the iron and manganese removal and PFAS removal for those remote facilities.
And Eric, how many of our current wells go directly into the system?
All the wells go into the system.
I'm sorry, I mean, go through I said that wrong. How many of our wells go through the water treatment plant prior to distribution, or are they all direct?
They're all direct.
All direct if you.
Yeah,
all
treatment
direct.
plant is just surface water.
Okay, and that will not change in the redesign of the new water treatment plant?
We actually have a project, Karen, for the Old Forge Pond neighborhood that would bring the well water up to the treatment plant. It's separate from the treatment plant project. So we would pump those wells up to the treatment plant as part, right after we did this. That's already in the works.
Okay, that's not alt B, alt A, that's,
No, the all day is the pump station down at Old Oaken Bucket that you see at the road that has to be upgraded to pump the water.
all right. So Mr. Chair, when we dive into the financials, I think we need to be mindful of that as, what's the time? I mean, if we've got 3 to 4 years of compliance, that's on the horizon, that work, correct?
Correct.
Can I make one comment to this, dropping the demolition? That may be something that you wanna do, and it's your call. We would have to come up with a number to plug back in, because you're gonna need to sort of secure the facility, take it offline and secure it. So there is some amount of cost, not the same as the demo number, because a portion of securing the facilities inside the demo number, just for keeping the numbers good.
Okay.
You guys could make
So-
that sort.
So it's some number south of 600,000.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Do you
Well,
want me to address
inflation-
that, Karen? Do you have more
Pardon me?
questions, or do you want me to talk about the demolition?
Yeah, go
While
ahead.
we're up
No,
there?
the rest of my questions really are in the weeds and the finances.
The estimate on the demolition was over $2 million. The bid came in around 600. So that's a fantastic bid based on what we thought it was going to be.
Okay,
We'll have to demolish it. The incremental increase in what we're talking about is small. And, I can tell you now, if we do it later, it's gonna cost more than $600,000.
Okay.
So.
that's why I wanted to know what the breakout was on that.
If
Okay.
it come in at the $2 million estimate, that would have been the first thing I would have said, don't do option B. Option A, I think we need to do to really make the plant run efficiently. But if the estimate of the demolition was in the $2 million range, I would say just drop it. Well, maybe they'll have a fire out or something later, but we would have dropped that out and come back to it later. But at just over $500,000, I think it's a really good price to top that building.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
So there's really two big questions we're gonna have to answer. One, it seems like we're coming to some consensus about what, are we gonna rebid, move forward? That's one aspect. And number two is going through some of these finances to see, I mean, part of my, it's just me personally, I wanna get that number as close to zero as possible. For folks, what we said, what would cost. And there are some options and ways that we can possibly do that, which would be fantastic. But until we go through all those financials, I wanted to open it up for folks. For questions for you on more the technical side, is we're in the how we get here kind of phase. So anything else before I open it up?
I just want to clarify, the issue of the wells and PFAS. Are you suggesting to us that in some time in the future, we're gonna have to deal with the wells that are not going into the current water treatment plant, that we're looking at another, based on what you said, $21 to have the wells treated properly?
I think, that's probably a question best answered by the DPW and Eric a little bit outside of where we're at, because I don't have in front of me or in my mind numbers for all of the wells. You have a lot of wells, some of which get little water, some of which get more water. At least we felt there were a couple of wells that make a fair amount of water. There were some nascent PFAS issues that we felt could easily get piped to the treatment plant. So that's what we commented, but how many wells do you have?
So, two of the main wells we have are right off 3A, and the other one's in back to Pond Road. So our recent RFP for engineering is going to be doing the neighborhood as well as continuing the pipe down 3A, tying to First Parish. And we also want a second pipe down 3A, so that we can pick up the well off 3A and the well of Tack Factory Pond Road, because that goes into the well up 3A for treatment, and then goes up to the system. So we would run that back to the plant, run it through the treatment plant, and that's how we would treat and handle our PFAS. We're looking now at well 17, and because we had a couple issues with that this year, we are looking at possibly adding GAC, regulated activated carbon, to that system. Help treat PFAS also in the future. Some of the PFAS regulations, movement regulations that have come out. Eric was telling me he doesn't have the testing protocol yet to test for everything we have, so it's still kind of it's a moving target. And then the other two wells we have are 10 and 11 across from Ronnie Simons, which we could potentially run down the rotary and then try to bring back to the plant. We haven't figured that one out yet. Those are the two wells that we have outstanding. And Eric, speak up if I'm way off on any of that.
No, there's the PFAS regulation, like you said, it just came out. I have a Zoom call with DEP on the 28th of this month. So Mass DEP is going over with the town systems exactly what this means for Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has been measuring for the PFAS 6. The EPA regulations are different than that and include things that Massachusetts wasn't regulating. So it's.
Some of our biggest producing wells, we have the ability to, I don't want to say easily, but fairly easily get to the treatment plant. 17, we just built the green sand filter there 2 years ago, and that can be upgraded. The current system can be upgraded to do PFAS. Right. And there's room in the building for that, so we don't have to build a complete filter system out of the system.
Yeah, I think to help clarify, tell me if I'm wrong with this, that you were suggesting that if we didn't pipe some of those in, the cost would be an additional.
Then you would have to put a
So we're
filter on
talking
each
20
one.
to
Yeah, we have-
40 million if we did not do what we're doing.
I think, yes, I do think there was a slight misunderstanding.
We have two projects that we looked at, one in Webster where they're doing 2 wells for PFAS, and another one in Rain where they're doing 2 wells for PFAS. And both of those communities are spending over $20 million to do 2 wells.
The cost of the wells is dependent upon the amount of water you gotta put through the treatment, so the higher producing well, the more the cost of the filter.
The comparable wells.
So the wells we have are gonna go directly and they're gonna be treated for PFAS in the new building.
But not everyone.
Not
Yeah,
all.
two of the big ones, two of the big ones.
The majority of,
We got room for a couple of big ones.
majority of the volume.
All right, any folks here, and then Seth, you can open it up. Anyone over that?
Mr. Goodrich, you have no hands raised virtually.
Anybody in the audience, any questions?
All right. So now let's give people time. Okay.
If you do not know how to raise your hand virtually, folks, and you are on that Zoom, you go down the bottom of your screen to see a reaction button. You click any button, and I'll see your hand go up, and we can unmute you if you so wish.
Turn your cameras on and believe us.
Yeah. Okay, do a question. We want people to see everything and have their questions answered, so let us know if you have any trouble. Okay, let's now talk a little bit about the financials. What we're presented with, some of the, and let me re-explain this for some of the folks. Essentially, what we're talking about are using buckets of funds, reserve funds, free cash, things that we have, that we're able, essentially, constant savings. But no, I mean, these are buckets of money that we're able to tap into that we can apply towards the project. So that's one question. The first question is how much exactly, and are these buckets the appropriate ones? Many of them are gonna have to be done at town meeting, some, the select board are able to do, take money from as well.
I'm just gonna put that back up on the screen,
Yeah.
I'm getting the screen so that we're not all looking at that one bar that's getting anyone's way to see stuff.
So may I ask a question, Nancy? So Nancy, to clarify for people here, taxpayers at home, the original cost would have been what, on a $921,000 average single home?
The
That's
original,
unbelievable.
yeah, the original estimate was $255, it's gonna be level service, so it didn't start high and go low, it would stay the same the
Stay
whole
the
way,
same.
except Clean Water Trust, how they normally do their debt. And it was over 30 years, which is longer than we normally do, but for a water treatment plant of this size and for a useful life, that's how we chose to finance it.
So prior to this,
255 was our number.
it was $255, so everyone at home understands that if your house is worth less than $921,000, your tax bill would increase less. If it's worth more, obviously, it would increase more, but having just gone through the school override, that was a very big number.
That was 866.
Yes, very big number. So, just so people understand that we're not, this is essential to the town. No water, no good water. It's just, that's what we're all about here. So I just want people to understand. So if we were to go with the higher interest rate, the 1.9, it would be, the bill would increase by $46 a year.
So that's our current.
For the
Yeah.
average value home.
Yes, yes.
So you'd be going
So
from
that's what we're talking
255
about.
to 46.
Because, you know, it's like when you go to buy a house and you take out a mortgage and they hand you that document that shows you what you're really gonna be paying over 30 years, people usually flip out because they're like, what? But when you break it down on a yearly or monthly or whatever basis you're paying something on, it's a big number, this increase, but it's not unmanageable, so.
And as we always try to do, is we try to be conservative in our estimates and come in lower.
Right.
As with public safety complex in this project, things are not working in the manner we would like them to work. We've talked about 0%, we ran some numbers earlier today in our conversation, if we could get $6 million at 0%, that would lower it by $8. I know to the chair's point, he was interested in some of the other places where there are funds that were identified. So similar to what happened with the public safety complex, as soon as I heard what the bids were, I went looking for any possible areas for funds, and Jim remembered the money that we got at annual town meeting that was announced, I had forgotten that federal money. A lot of what the money that we received, ARPA, that federal money, the way the article was written was specific. It reduced the 50 million. So when you look at one of these charts, I'll put up in a minute, the 50 million has gone down and down and down. So right now, just with what's out there, the borrowing impact is based on 44 million, because we've gotten other sources. So it's not like we're adding and adding and adding to the ARPA data coming off the top. But these were a listing of the different funds, and I'm sorry, it's a little hard to see this way, but every time I share screen and put it in full display, I lose the bottom, which has got the totals on it. One of the places I did not dip into or recommend dipping into as deeply is the stabilization fund. The stabilization fund is 8.3 million. The stabilization fund is our rainy day fund, it's what we use when we have emergency storm costs. So I'm comfortable recommending dipping in $1.5 million and then replacing it with free cash. I'm not comfortable recommending dipping in any deeper, only because I think we're long overdue for a storm and I really don't wanna jeopardize that reserve that we have up there. We have other foreshore issues and just, we all know what it's like here when storms hit. We would be using all of the water retained earnings, the total water capital stabilization fund, all of the remaining free cash. All of the capital stabilization fund that is not allocated to something else, it's about like 100,000 allocated to foreshore. The Toll Brothers money that we had for water and sewer, that's not field money, this is separate water and sewer money that we had. And we're taking it, over almost 50% of the wind turbine and about 40% of the solar array, and knocking them down. So those funds have been building and building over years. They would come to good use here. So you see that, I apologize for being hard to see. The interest that is earned on the Commonwealth ARPA money and on the Plymouth County ARPA money, it's considered, regular interest. We would have to appropriate it. So all of the different funds that we have found, most of them, other than the revolving funds for wind and solar, require a town meeting vote to use anyways. So that's my recommendation to you. You can make recommendations to dip into anything else that we have on the stabilization fund deeper. What we don't know is we don't know how much more we're gonna get from Plymouth County. We don't know if we're gonna get a 0%. I'm very hesitant to recommend to you to wipe out half of the stabilization fund, try to lower this impact, and then get a 0% loan and not be able to restore it. Because if we can, more that we get potentially as 0% loan, the better off we are. The 1.9%, we were not aware that as a housing choice community, we get 0.5%. So that's helping right off the bat. So that's why I'm being a little bit more conservative and coming down with 14 million. I think we may have savings in other places. You also have the ability later on to bring another town meeting article to negate it, mitigate it. So if we had great free cash in 2 years while this project's still ongoing, you could reduce the borrowing and further reduce the impact once you know what's gonna happen with the rest of the article, once you know what Clean Water Trust is gonna do for us, or anything else we can get from our federal state partners.
So as of right now, the biggest unknown is the exact percentage of the 0%. Now, I feel very confident understanding that we don't know this a portion.
I think we will get a portion of it that will be considered PFAS, yes, I think
Yes.
the solvents are great, whether we get the whole thing, we don't know, but a portion of it will have to be PFAS, as it is.
Or anywhere from 10%, it's not gonna be everything, maybe 90%, maybe 50%, we don't know, it's a known unknown.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, again, just so folks know, I mean, if the entire project was 0, which we would reduce what we said by $27.
Be less than what we told people.
Less than what we told people. If we also dip into those, and we are, as we just said, we're confident that a portion will be 0%.
Yes.
The more I learn, the more I'm confident as well. Okay. I have a few things to add, but I don't, any other questions on, I know Karen had some questions on finances, and if you folks wanna go through. I have 1 or 2 possible changes. Karen, I think you said you had some.
Yeah, you want me to start? Sorry, I was in screen saving hell there for a second. Just before I go into the specifics, I want to just clarify that, so DEP requires the 5% contingency that we discussed earlier. Did the actual bid, do the bidding documents have a contingency as well?
No, they do not.
So it's all in, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Um,
How much was the contingency?
It's 5% on top of the bid numbers.
This was it three, two,
Three and a half was in one of them.
so $3 million. And if you don't spend the whole contingency, that also lowers what we
Right.
borrow, it takes down that tax impact.
Right.
So it's a-
my biggest question on, and again, you know, Nancy, you shook out every mattress in town, and we appreciate that, because and I agree with you about being prudent about our stabilization fund. I'm sure that affects our overall health of the and ratings in the town. My biggest question on the allocations is if we pull out every quarter we can find under the mattress, especially the capital articles, with this recommendation, what is not going to get done? That list I don't know. Or what is going to have to be, I shouldn't say that, what is going to have to be postponed in order to achieve this?
So just to speak to the capital articles,
Yep.
I looked at all the open water capital articles and gave them all a haircut where I thought they could have a haircut. They've been hanging around and they hadn't used the money or the project was complete. I'm sure that, and that came up to about $600,000. And I'm sure with Kevin and Eric, we'll probably move some of that around, but we have a $250,000 emergency repairs for the water treatment plant outstanding. We haven't happened. But I don't want to use that for something else because that's just asking for OOB plant to go down. So some of the things we just held, I didn't touch any of the water main money. I didn't touch any of the additional water tank money, any of the projects that are ongoing now. I was looking for all of the older projects like well 19 and 22 that had a couple $100,000 left in them from a few years ago. All those places where we can say, okay, yep, it looks like it's time to shut this off and put it for better use.
Okay, so the analysis of debt versus water rates, that's where we would talk about not being able to get to some things. You've said if we do it through water rates, we're gonna have to rescind other borrowing authorizations because they would go up too high. So that would be where, if we go that
Yes.
route, there will be an impact on Hummerock, Dolan, and water main replacements in your recommendations.
Something would have to give, yes, if you're gonna put it onto the rates.
Okay.
Rates alone or rates plus an override?
Rates alone for this portion of it.
Okay.
The rest of it's still a dedication.
Right, and just a couple more quick questions, and I'll yield the floor, but just so I make sure I understand, the water retained earnings that you're recommending is 100% of the current retained earnings?
Yes,
Okay, and the water capital stabilization, we would only have around 25,000 left?
All of it.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll yield the floor, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I look at our favorite wind turbine revolving fund and solar array revolving fund. Did we take more? Sorry.
We were having a sidebar, I apologize.
Our favorite topic, the wind turbine and the solar array revolving funds. Those funds get replenished every year by,
They do get replenished, but it's taken a decade to get to where they're at now.
okay,
And we do have a voluntary curtailment agreement on the wind turbine.
yeah, I understand.
so we're not putting
I
as much in
remember,
that fund as we
yeah,
used
so-
to.
Yeah, we understand. I think most of us were here.
Yeah,
when
I
that
originally
happened.
had it at 500 and it's gone up to 650.
But there's a balance of 1.3 million, 1.33 million in wind turbine and 1.56. What else do we use that money for?
We used it for fiscal 25 to fund the roads and seawalls, 200 from each fund.
Okay. So that balance is
I reduced it by the
about
200,000.
200. So are we planning on doing that every year?
Hopefully not, but you know, we had to do it for fiscal 25 to maintain the commitment to those two capital items.
But there's no other encumbrances on those two revolving funds at this point? I'm just suggesting that maybe we take a little more out of both of those, but know, that's.
That was gonna be my suggestion as well. I mean, how, solar brings in how much per year on average? Is it 100 and?
Couple $100,000.
Couple hundred. Yeah, I mean,
So
another 50,000 for us, 100,000
it absolutely is.
every dollar.
It absolutely is, but $1 million is about $5 of impact.
We have people who go to the dollar store to get their groceries. So for $5, I'm fine. And this money's been sitting here, I would like to use a portion of it. Or at least talk about using a portion of it. If we can, every single dollar that we could save is gonna matter.
Especially
And
in
you
those
could-
two when they're not encumbered at this point.
They're not encumbered. Well, at least we can talk about it.
What else would we use it for? I guess that's. If you
Well,
don't use it for
no.
this, why are we saving it, or what?
Yeah, we use it for dam and seawall for this year. So it's an opportunity cost, right? Whatever you
Yeah.
spend now is not
Yeah.
available to do something later.
So we've used it for.
So you might come 2-3 years from now and say, we should have that, but we don't, we use it someplace else. So there's the opportunity cost if you start draining all these accounts.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's,
We have this problem now.
Throw it out.
right,
Thank you, Mr. Nancy, I thought there was there was a commitment to use some of, I forget which, if it was solar or wind for the athletic field.
no, it was the middle school.
No,
or
we-
something.
The financial forecast had recommended 100,000 from each fund for the middle school and public safety debt. But the financial forecast did not recommend that for fiscal '25.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I like their plan. That the worst scenario is at 1.9. We're going to $42 increase per year, $301 for the average home. So the people at the dollar store, maybe they don't own an average home, they're gonna be paying a little less than that. What you don't have here would be the good news sides of things. If we get part of it at 0%. We'll see some reductions. The worst scenario is at the 1.9. Am I wrong with that understanding? I like the idea of a conservative understanding, so that when we go forward, if we're still diligent, which I know we'll be, we'll see better than that. And that's as crystal ball as you can get. It really is. And we should, move forward to make this thing the best thing it's gonna be. I'm tired of buying bottled water. I'll save money, not buying bottled water eventually. Have you tasted our waters lately? Yes. Once in a while I do that just to decide whether I need to buy bottled water. So that's still.
Yeah, I don't know.
Eric, I think my water's been,
What's that?
I just saying my water's been wonderful, thank you.
I'm trying.
Actually, mine is.
No.
I'm on the side of town that does have good water, so, I mean, I want good water for everybody. So what's the discussion? Is
Well,
another,
this is really anything about.
do we go with
Sure.
this, or is there
Yes,
more hair cutting we can do
right, there's,
on specifically the wind turbine and the solar array?
right, you can add more money there, this would be the time. Karen brought up the point for the demolition, the 500,000 there. It's gonna cost more down the line, but
It's not gonna be 500,000.
it's not gonna be 500,000, so it's pay now, pay double later. But
Or pay heat on a building we intended to demolish,
Right.
yet
Well, we
we-
wouldn't
Insurance.
pay heat on it, it would be just shut down and.
And be an eyesore.
It'd be an
Traffic
eyesore that
nuisance,
everyone would
Yeah, an empty
complain
building,
about.
yeah,
I
that's why Steve said you have to put a contingent in to seal it up and.
But at the original award date, that concept, that part of the project was deemed as important. I don't wanna sit here and change the integrity of the design. We should get what we wanted, that we all agreed to have. how much is left in if you're gonna take, what is it, excuse me, 650 from the wind turbine, so you're gonna leave about half the funds in those two.
650 or 600,000.
Yeah.
You're taking half and half. I mean, if it makes you feel better to take another 50, take another 50, but I don't see the point in that, because again, it doesn't reduce very much at all. And then you're threatening those funds a little bit for feel-good moments. Yes, I don't know. Financially, I have faith in them. So.
Yeah, Nancy.
Oh, yeah, the only other thing I wanted to mention is, the contingency. Every dollar not spent in contingency is a dollar of savings, dollar we don't have to borrow. So so if you say you take 1/3 of it, to be higher than what you estimated, that's still $2 million worth of savings. That's chunky.
Yeah.
So that's savings on the expense side. So, and, I'm just afraid that I'm afraid financially that we could overextend ourselves. Yeah, it sounds stupid when we're talking about $20 million, with what we've faced in the past with storms and other unexpected events. Where we don't know some things. I definitely think there could be a commitment made that there will be further mitigation if at all possible, because we don't know what Plymouth County could give us. If they could give us another 2 or 3 million, that's pure savings. And I don't want them to back away from giving it to us by saying, I didn't need that much. This is not gonna hit the tax bill right away.
Well,
Okay, and then we'll.
in terms of revolving funds, that's strictly a board decision.
Yes.
So
It'd be in the motion.
if we wanted to, at some point, we could do that.
You would have to vote a number, then that number was in the motion to reduce the total borrowing, so
Yeah.
it would be in the motion at town meeting, that we would take extra.
But to your point, yes, the board could take a vote and say, we want to reduce the impact of the water treatment plant by an extra $50,000, and then when we set the tax rate, we would reflect the board's vote.
At a later date. we
Yes,
could-
at any time.
Okay.
Alright, so those,
So I feel.
for those two,
And I don't think you have to make a decision on this tonight, so I think we can put it on as an article for agenda item for the next meeting. In the meantime, see if we get any indication on a clean water trust or DEP, what they're gonna count as. As PFAS, I know Rep. Candy's been working hard on that, Senator O'Connor's been working hard on that. I know the chair has talked to the treasurer's office about it, so they're hearing it from about 9 different directions. It doesn't mean we're gonna get the right answer, but it hopefully means we'll get an answer so we can do some planning on what it's actually gonna look like.
I'm sure there's someone that we.
Oh.
Yes.
I don't. Not that involved in any of this, but just listening, is it possible to?
Wait, just name and addresses for the record, sorry, just so we know,
And Aaron Drapley, 151st Parish.
sorry.
So I'm hearing different decisions, like one is the additional cutting for the wind and the solar, and another is possibly cutting the demolition. Could you take a little extra from the wind and the solar and just focus that on the demolition? Is it?
It's a one bid. So.
You can't
I guess
take one off
To
that.
answer your question, if we did not do the demolition,
Yeah.
and we saved that to later,
With
would we then
money
use
from-
some of the money from the solar and wind towards that demolition? Yes, you could. My concern, as I suggested earlier, is we estimated it would cost $2 million to tear that building down. There's lead, there's asbestos, there's all kinds of stuff you don't want that's in there. And the contractor bid just over $500,000. So if you pull it out, I think it's gonna be substantially more than $500,000, close to the $2 million that we're talking about, if we come back and do it later.
Just, and, yeah, for the.
But just the answer to your question is, yes, if we took that out, the board could vote to use solar money towards the cost of demolition.
Yeah, so the solar panels and the wind turbine are a little bit over, each one about 100,000. We've been saving that for 10 years, so there's over $1 million. Now the time, so she suggests have it 650, we're saying maybe 700, I mean, fair enough, what's the right number to kind of reduce that, but also not, oh no, now we need it for something else. Does that make sense, or is that?
Oh, yeah, I would think to reduce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Nancy and I, we our directive is to get as close to no impact as possible. That's what we're gonna try to do without, in our opinion, putting other things at risk.
I don't think anyone wants to compromise our financial standing,
Yeah.
especially because we have such a good bond rating.
Yeah.
So, I understand your reluctance to
We're
not
gonna
be
keep banging away at it.
conservative, yeah.
Again, I wouldn't over-explain it, but again, folks, the bond rating, why it's so important, because then it's gonna be the interest rates that we pay for any and every other project throughout town, and so we have to make sure that we maintain that, so we're not paying more as you see how important interest rates are. Seth, is there anyone else with their?
Mr. Goodrich, right now we don't, but let me just, because we did have a hand raised briefly earlier, let me just explain one more time. If you are here virtually, you're gonna take your mouse, you're gonna go to that bottom, you're gonna click the reaction button. Click on it. Yes, Mr. Goodrich, one moment here. Mr. Hunt, if you should be able to unmute, just name, address, and go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, James Hunt, Manlot Road, Scituate, beautiful North Scituate, unsewered North Scituate, I might add. You people have screwed the pooch on this. This is extremely disappointing. Municipal construction projects deserve estimators that are up to date, that understand market conditions, that I guess I need a video. No, okay. Just like the motor vessel Dolly that brought down the bridge in Baltimore Harbor was piloted by a pilot that did not anticipate the conditions under which he was piloting. This project has been led astray. There is no way that 40% override, a 40% failure to properly evaluate and estimate this project. You need a new pilot. It's too late on this project, I understand that, and I will have to pay the difference, and I understand that too. But going forward, Scituate construction projects must be properly managed. This is a classic error. And I just hope that you are able to correct it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Phyllis Carlberg, 26 Hughes Road. You know, Mr. Gilmore, I have to disagree with you because I know a hell of a lot of people in this town that $256 is gonna be a change of life for them. For people that have been in this town longer than most of you in this room, to which I grew up with and whatnot, but something has got to be done to help some of these people along. Because it's not right to have you push these people out. And why, when you knew you want water first, why wasn't this brought up 2 weeks ago before the school was brought in? Because that's another big bill. $900 to a lot of people, you know, in town is cost prohibitive. Why don't you take your water money and donate it to some of these other people that can't afford to buy their groceries? I was appalled at how many people there are, but the food pantry. I just can't believe that that's what this town has come to. And they were outstanding citizens back in the day. So I hope that this board will consider trying to figure out how they can stay in town and still pay the bills that are being pushed upon them for inadequacies. But thank you.
No, I thank you, and thank you, Jim. I'm glad that you're angry. I am. I can't tell you how angry I was. Because it shows not only that you care, right?
Well, yeah.
But it's right. It's a broken promise. I mean, Jim's right, I could have done better, or I could have asked better questions. I am hopeful, because I'm with you, every single dollar matters. And if we can get the vast majority of this to 0%, I'm never gonna promise this, but the fact that the numbers work out, that people can actually pay less is gonna be fabulous. And the fact that if we've had good fiscal stewardship, that we have some of these reserves. It's,
Oh,
everything's
I
getting, so it's like,
have faith in
yeah,
Nancy.
Yeah.
I watched her in action for a lot of years,
yeah.
so I would not second guess anything that she's doing. But other people, absolutely, I don't have any trust in.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I would like to comment back. I don't take a dollar lightly. I understand some of the older citizens in this town that have been here forever are strapped. I've been here since 81. I'm not living the way people would like everybody to live. When I said the $42, what I really meant that's the worst case scenario based on advice of very saged people that really do what they say they can do. I am as concerned about the food pantry and people that need help, I think, as you are. And I'm not, so please don't misunderstand where I was going with that. I was trying to get us to an understanding of what's the worst case scenario if we have to do that. Now, we don't have to vote on this tonight. There's some more work to do. So I hope we can turn over some more stones, and don't misunderstand me in that assessment. I think charity, I think the town, you know, the water treatment plant, when was that built? In the 70s?
60s.
I'm sorry?
67.
67. So it is, you know, there are realities that we have to do these things, and unfortunately, costs are crazy right
Oh,
now.
I understand that, I do understand all of that, but then you take a look, I've been a taxpayer myself for 47 years in my home. And, I mean, I was 23 when we bought the house, okay, so I fully understand the dynamics. However, it's,
We didn't know
What-
about this cost
and I
2 weeks ago.
understand that too.
2 weeks ago, we didn't even know about this. We learned about this end of last week.
Well, that's why I'm here tonight, to just get what's going on. It's been a while since I've been a regular, but I just been
Welcome
standing
back.
out 4 nights a week, to stay on top of everything that's going on in this town. But it is, and I think that you have to understand that not everybody lives on the cliffs. And that there's other people that deserve a little bit of thought as to how they're gonna financially pull through some of this stuff. Or they're gonna get the boot out of town, and that's not right either. So I know there's a big margin, but it exists, and I would hope to think that you would consider all of these things also. So that's my point, thank you.
Don't want to put you on the spot, but if, as we talk about this, because again, I wish there were more people. You know, for us, every dollar, there's the extra 50,000 from the solar and like, what do you want to see from us? So when if we have and go forward, that we can get a yes vote. Because I'm always saying this, if this doesn't pass, oh, the extra cost in 2 or 3 or 4 years, we're talking even so much more money.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know whether, you could get a hold of some of these people, and there might be a couple dozen, I don't think that the number of houses are huge, but figure out a way to make it work for these people. I don't know.
Phyllis, do you have any understanding as to how many people may just not know, for example, about some of the tax breaks that the assessor's office can?
Oh, yeah, that's minimal though, right?
Well,
I mean,
it's,
I know every little bit helps, but
Phyllis, I understand, but if we're talking $10 here, $20 here, we're up here trying to figure out, how can we reduce this by dollars and dollars? So I hear you. And I just wanna make sure that the assessor's office has actually run a couple of seminars at the
well, I've
senior
been to
center.
those too.
Do you think people find them helpful? Do we need to do
Um,
more of that, just to make sure we're reaching everyone we should reach?
Well, the impact is minimal to these people. I mean,
But minimal is better than nothing. It is, it's better than
I
nothing.
think that well, whatever, please just consider these people.
Of course.
They have every right to be here and not be financially pushed out.
I don't think anyone up here wants to push anyone out of town, and I will stop that.
No,
Thank
so
you
that,
for
no, yeah,
coming
thank you,
to-
I mean, this is. We're
One more.
Oh, yeah, sure, go.
I just heard you mentioned that you heard about this budget shortage just last week. How often do you get statuses on the scope, budget, resource, timeline?
Yeah, so it's varied throughout the project, former chair, I was the chair yesterday. We get usually monthly, and then it'd be, let's say, quarterly Zoom meetings, and I've been in some of those Zoom meetings as well, we had some in Kevin's office. So I mean, it varies, but it's usually at least monthly, and then there's different Zoom ones that we've done as well. But again, I think more can speak more to that, just not here.
But I'm just wondering if perhaps a little bit more oversight might be helpful as a project manager. So, like, I know I have to
No,
report.
yeah, no, I mean, there's also different from what DPW is in constant contact, and that's always weekly with us, so it's, I mean, the whole team, there's usually someone, let's say, daily, but what would you say, Kevin? Every
Yeah, we
other day or-
typically, at least once a week talk with the consultants as well as the OPM, and probably have monthly meetings, and the town administrator attends the monthly meetings, going on process and everything else, and where we are. If we have to meet more, we meet more. If it's a design process or phase, we might extend that a few weeks, and Eric's involved to watch that, and there's a group of us that go.
Did I get right, it's a 40% difference in the estimates? Is that the number that, I mean, because I understand 15% increase in construction costs is normal right now, and regulatory costs have really gone
I'm
up.
gonna say, I thought it was like 23%, but I'll check with Nancy.
I thought it was by the OPM, I thought it was 3.8% of our estimate.
Okay, and that mostly construction costs and regulatory costs.
Construction rate, you said you were a project manager?
I'm a project manager, and then my brother does construction,
Okay,
high-end pool construction, so he said all of his costs are up 15% than they
Yep.
were 3 years ago across the board,
so,
and regulatory costs are up 50%. So that's just standard, it's happening now.
Andrew, do you mind if I address that directly, or?
Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll go to Karen.
So, a lot of what we're forced by is under the DCAM regulations, rules and regulations, as they had said earlier, so we have to follow and use pre-qualified bidders as well as material costs that increase. So, when we were down to it, one of the big things is we were hoping to have 7 bidders, and we only had 2 bidders that showed up again. And, my gut feeling is, and actually someone said it, they had 2 envelopes. All they had to beat was the other person in the room, so I think we faced that with our prices when we were there. That helps.
No, I mean, in terms of the costs being about 25% off, I think shows the extreme challenges that the economy has, that seems like it's. But I just wouldn't want this next month to have another big chunk.
And once they're tied into the bid, they're locked into the bid.
Right.
But, as as Stephen had said earlier, the RS means for construction have gone up to 22%, in the index over the course of the project. So that's a lot of material costs and everything else that we're adding. I hope that helps.
Yes. Thank you.
Good question. Karen, yep.
I was going to say, Kevin covered most of the things that I was gonna say. Going forward, exactly, any contract is locked in, and the oversight is basically everybody in this room plus a bunch of more people, making sure that we stay on track with the contract that's been approved. But Kevin covered most of what I was gonna say.
All right, so what we do need to vote on tonight, I'm sorry, I didn't see anybody else. Is, it doesn't seem like we want to rebid. Looks like we want to go forward with the debt. If I'm reading, debt exclusion not on water rates. So we have to set a special town meeting date for June 27th. Jim, that would be our next item to do, correct?
June 24th, yes.
June 24th.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
Sorry, I do, before we get on to that, I would like to propose this board as as something we haven't contemplated because of the engineering and specialty required to build this plant. I think that it might be prudent for us to go invite our Public Building Commission to be part of the the going forward review, with the primary purpose of making sure that all of the butters' concerns and the promises made in this contract are met. Not, I mean, they're not going to be able to contribute obviously to the technical aspects of what's required. But I think we might want to consider, and that may be a conversation down the road, but I think it would be prudent to make sure that as many eyes as possible are watching all the aspects, not just the engineering portions. So I wanted to just put that on the table tonight.
okay. That's a great conversation to have. I think when we make that final, because we don't have to make the final determination on the exact number. tonight,
That's a process.
Yeah, so we can do.
Yeah, the plan was once we bring the contractor on, start bringing the PVC into it.
Great, okay. Do we have?
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, motion. Unless there's any further discussion, a motion for town meeting.
Move that the select board vote to schedule a special town meeting for June 24th, 2024 to discuss an additional appropriation for construction of the water treatment plant.
Moved by Ms. Conley, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Harrison, excuse me, and we get a roll call.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campion.
Yes.
Okay. Open and close. Special town meeting warrant. I have a motion.
I do.
Now, any other further discussion on this? So this would essentially be opening the warrant, closing the warrant, asking for the additional funding. With a 20.3 million. The second article would be on the Plymouth County Commissioners asking for additional funds. Does anyone want to comment whether or not we should also have that second article, not have that second article?
I think we should.
I think we should, okay. Okay.
I think anything we can do to yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's supposed to, that's simply. Where's my, it's
Just a resolution. to
just
kind
a
of
resolution, so here you go, okay. No monetary values, we're just asking Plymouth County for additional ARPA funds. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Just before we open and close. We're comfortable with the 20.3. No other change, we're not taking the construction out. Correct, we're not changing that.
No, if I change it
People
to
to know. Okay, I want to be as clear, folks. All right, I'll have a motion then.
Move that the select board open and close the warrant for the special town meeting on June 24th, 2024, to include an article for additional funding for the construction of a new water treatment plant and an article for a resolution to the Plymouth County Commissioners for additional American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds that are for the same purpose.
Moved by Ms. Conley, do a second, second by Mr. Gilmore, roll call vote.
Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Aye.
Ms. Canfield.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Seeing nothing else, first of all, thank you, really good questions from everyone. I know there'll definitely be other opportunities for us to talk and reach out to the public. Please send in questions, and yeah, we want to be able to answer everything that we can. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Conlon, or a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Harrison, roll call vote to adjourn.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison, Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.